Hello, and welcome to my channel. My name's CritterXD. In today's video, since,
It's been 84 years.
since the Wheel of Time Season 1 came out, I'm gonna hit you with the highlights from Season 1. Names, places, important plot points to get you ready to rock and roll for Season 2. Before I get into the recap, I want to remind you really quickly, in case you'd forgotten, that the actors of SAG and the writers of the WGA are currently on strike fighting for their livelihood. The works that we love, like The Wheel of Time, would be nothing without the talented writers and actors who deserve livable wages and reasonable worker protections. If you have the means and would like to help them bridge the gap between paychecks, I put links in the description of this video to places you can donate. Every little bit helps. Okay, let's get into it. Here's a quick and dirty recap of The Wheel of Time Season 1. In episode 1, we meet our protagonists. Moiraine and Lan are looking for the Dragon Reborn, a prophesied savior against the Dark One, aka the Big Bad. They head to the Two Rivers, where it is rumored that there are 4 ta'veren, aka people with major main character energy. Rand is a shepherd who lives with his dad out on a farm. He's dating Egwene, the innkeeper's daughter, who's getting initiated into the women's circle in this episode. This is Mat. He's a scamp from a poor, troubled family who has 2 young sisters and is besties with Rand. And this is Perrin, who has a wife and is a blacksmith. Here we have Nynaeve. She's the village wisdom, a young for her station and very protective medicine woman of sorts who leads the female half of the government in the Two Rivers. Egwene breaks it to Rand that Nynaeve asked her to become her apprentice because she has potential. Rand takes it pretty hard because wisdoms don't really marry. But when Egwene later approaches him to tell him that she was going to go forward with the apprenticeship, he indicated that he knew, as if that was the natural choice for her. The town is attacked unexpectedly in the night by twisted beasts called Trollocs and Fades. The peddler who was in town, Padan Fain, seemed way too chill about it. Many people die. Rand and his dad Tam also get attacked in their isolated cabin. Tam pulls a heron-marked blade out from a chest under the bed, but takes an injury while fighting. Rand dispatches the Trolloc while it's distracted. Back at the village, Perrin accidentally kills his wife while fighting Trollocs in the close quarters of the forge, and Nynaeve gets dragged off by a different Trolloc. Rand brings his dad back to the village for healing, and Moiraine ends up healing him with magic, the One Power. She then convinces Perrin, Rand, Mat, and Egwene that the Dark One is waking. One of them is the Dragon Reborn who can stand against him, and they need to leave the village in order to protect it from future attacks. In episode 2, we're introduced to the White Cloaks, who have somehow managed to capture and kill Aes Sedai. For context, Moiraine is an Aes Sedai. Aes Sedai is the title for the magical women in this universe who are fully trained in the magical school in this universe called the White Tower. So they're generally pretty powerful. On the road with the 4 ta'veren, Moiraine begins to teach Egwene how to use the One Power, because it turns out she's got even more potential than Nynaeve knew. The 4 ta'veren also start to have some pretty wicked dreams that seem too real for comfort. Perrin also starts having oddly friendly interactions with the wolves nearby. The Trolloc bands that are chasing them eventually catch up to them, driving them into an abandoned city. That's cursed, by the way. Here, Mat discovers and takes a fancy to a dagger. The party gets driven out of the city by a malevolent blight called Mashadar, and they get split up in the process. Rand and Mat, Egwene and Perrin, and Lan and Moiraine. At the end of the episode, Nynaeve, who is not dead after all, catches up with Lan and Moiraine and demands to know where her friends are. In episode 3, Mat and Rand stumble across a town where they meet a gleeman, Tom, and a feisty innkeeper, Dana. Turns out she's a dark friend and tries to get them captured, but Tom takes her out. Lesson learned here: anyone can be a dark friend. Perrin and Egwene encounter a colorful group of pacifistic traveling people who take them in. And Moiraine, Nynaeve, and Lan stumble across a group of Aes Sedai who are holding a man captive in a cage. Episode 4. Perrin and Egwene are still traveling with the Tinkers. Aram's a flirty little hottie, and Isla does her level best to recruit Perrin into their pacifistic ways. If anyone could do it, it's her. Rand, Mat, and Tom encounter a farmer and his family. Tom is growing concerned that Mat might be a channeler, and explains that his nephew could channel and was gentled by the women of the White Tower and did not live long after that. Rand wakes up in the middle of the night out of another horrific dream, and he finds Mat inside the farmer's house with the farmer and his family slaughtered. Mat is very out of it, pointing the clean dagger into a shadowed area of the house that a Fade jumps out of. Tom jumps into action to battle the Fade, insisting that the boys leave him behind and escape. which they end up doing. Moraine, Nynaeve, and Lan find themselves camping with a group of Aes Sedai who are holding a man who can channel captive. That man is Logain. Logain had declared himself the Dragon Reborn. The plan was to get him to Tar Valon, where he would be tried and gentled. Now feels like a good time to mention that male channelers are destined to become mad. There's no way to escape it. They will eventually go mad if they're channeling the one power. Nynaeve and Lan are getting flirty. Liandrin is shady and immediately unlikable. And Alanna, Karini, and their warders seem pretty chill. Logain's followers attack the camp in an effort to free him, and Logain proves to be very strong in the power. He breaks free, kills Karini, and basically takes out an entire room of Aes Sedai and warders. Most of them, including Lan, appeared to be mortally wounded, at which point Nynaeve basically went Super Saiyan with an AoE healing blast, bringing them all back from the brink. And when I say she went Super Saiyan, even Logain was in awe of the extent of her power. The Aes Sedai then link their power, and with Liandrin at the lead, gentle Logain on the spot, permanently cutting his connection to the One Power. In episode 5, Lan, Moraine, and Nynaeve make it to the White Tower. Lan tries to help Karini's warder Stepan make it through the loss of his Aes Sedai, but Stepan ends up drugging Lan so he can commit suicide. Stepan's funeral scene at the end of this episode was particularly heartbreaking, but also important to show the extent and importance of the bond between an Aes Sedai and her warder. Rand and Mat also make it to Tar Valon. Mat is increasingly sick and plagued by the scene back at the farmhouse, questioning whether it was him who killed the family. Rand meets a new friend. His name is Loial, and he's an Ogier. Ogier are larger than humans, usually quite bookish, and very fond of trees. Loial is an absolute delight. Perrin and Egwene get captured by the White Cloaks, and Aemon Valda, suspecting that Egwene can channel, tortures Perrin until she shows her abilities. Joke's on Valda though, because Egwene singes Perrin's bonds. Perrin scares the bejesus out of Valda when his eyes turn gold and he approaches him menacingly. With Valda distracted, Egwene breaks herself out and stabs him. And her and Perrin escape the White Cloak camp with the help of some wolves that have been following them. In episode 6, we meet Siuan, the Amyrlin Seat, which is both the title for the leader of the Aes Sedai in the White Tower and the big fancy chair that she sits in.
Isn't that confusing? To have the woman in the throne name the same thing?
She presides over Logain's trial, and he is sentenced to live out his days as a gentled man under the control of the Tower. The politics in the Tower are going wild right now, with Liandrin planting seeds of doubt about Moraine and Siuan left and right, and lots of people concerned about Siuan's seemingly waning power. Moraine and Lan finally ferret out Rand and Mat, and when they finally confront them, Moraine realizes that Mat is being plagued by a great evil and purges him of it with great effort. That night, Moraine uses a magical item known as a ter'angreal to transport herself to a secret location where Siuan is waiting. Turns out, they're in love and have been secretly working together for 20 years to find the Dragon Reborn. Siuan urges Moraine to take the dragon, whoever they are, to the Eye of the World to confront the Dark One. The next day, Siuan formally exiles Moraine from the tower as punishment for her secrecy, when really it was just a good excuse to get her out of the tower so she could continue her quest. The party, along with Loial, meets up outside the city at a way gate, which all of them get into except for Mat, who surprises them all by hanging back. Sidebar: the first 6 episodes were shot before COVID, and Barney Harris, the actor who played Mat, left the show before they shot episodes 7 and 8. For this reason, Mat is almost entirely absent from episodes 7 and 8. We have a new Mat for season 2, Donal Finn, and I, for one, can't wait to see him in action. On to episode 7. In the cold open, we see a very pregnant Aiel woman fighting and absolutely dominating soldiers while in active labor. We find out later that she was Rand's mom, and Tam, despite fighting a war against her people, stayed with her while she gave birth and then adopted Rand after she died on the snowy slopes of the mountain. Back to the present, the ways are terrible, and the group ultimately gets assaulted by a terrible force called Machin Shin that cripples them all, physically and with self-doubt.
I can't do this anymore, man. My head's about to explode. My whole life sucks.
Nynaeve manages another ult explosion of wild magic to hold it at bay while Moraine channels the Waygate open so they can get out. They make it to Faldara, meet Min, who sees omens around people and can sometimes tell their future, and have a little spat about Perrin maybe or maybe not having a thing for Egwene. Egwene and Rand make up, but overnight we find out that Rand has been accidentally/secretly channeling all season, and he's actually the Dragon Reborn. He tells Moiraine so they can set off to the Eye of the World alone. While all this is happening, Nynaeve and Lan get really close. Though Lan is torn because he feels as if he has other responsibilities and doesn't want her to essentially waste her time with him if he's just going to die fighting the Shadow. Episode 8! In the cold open, we see Lews Therin Telamon, the dragon, living in a futuristic-looking world 3,000 years ago. He pleads with a woman, the leader of the Aes Sedai, to help him cage the Dark One. She warns him that his plan would expose him to the Dark One's corruption, but he doesn't appear dissuaded. Back to the present, Rand and Moiraine traverse the Blight on the way to the Eye of the World. Meanwhile, Fal Dara prepares for an assault from Shadowspawn. Lan and Nynaeve part ways, with him essentially suggesting she'd need to find someone else because of their respective responsibilities. The Dark One, who has been haunting Rand's dreams all season, finally revealed himself in his human form, taunting Rand in pretty wicked visions. Moiraine gives Rand a Sa'angreal, which is an object that heavily amplifies a challenger's capacity to use the One Power while they channel through it. She's hoping it'll help him in his fight against the Dark One. They make it to the Eye, which seems super familiar to Rand for some reason. Then Rand enters a dreamlike world where he and Egwene have a daughter and farm in the Two Rivers. Rand is actually unconscious at the Eye, and while Moiraine tries to protect him, the Dark One cuts her off from the One Power. The Dark One tries to tempt Rand in this vision of his idyllic life, but Rand ultimately rejects him, concluding that that's not what Egwene would want. That wasn't Egwene. In a blast of the One Power, Rand banishes the Dark One, who fades away with an odd grin on his face. As a last line of defense for Fal Dara, Egwene, Nynaeve, Amalisa, and some of the other women who can channel line up outside of the walls and fight off the Trollocs. Amalisa didn't finish her training at the tower, however, and she burns herself out and everyone else, except for Egwene and Nynaeve. While Nynaeve tried to shoulder the burden of the power on herself, she almost burnt herself out, but Egwene brought her back from the edge, healing her. Meanwhile, in the throne room of Fal Dara, they excavate the Horn of Valir out from under the throne. Padan Fain shows up, however, takes down everyone in the throne room, and takes the horn for himself. Perrin catches him in the act, but does not manage to stop him from leaving, obviously still struggling with his relationship with violence. And Mat, still looking incredibly shady, heads toward the White Tower in Tar Valon. Rand asks Moiraine to tell everyone that he's dead and heads off in his own direction. Lan finally catches up with Moiraine, but he can't sense their connection anymore. Finding shattered Quendiar on the floor of the Eye of the World, Quendiar being a substance that should be unbreakable, Moiraine realizes that that was not the last battle that they fought. It was instead the first. And as a sign of things to come, we see a completely new group of seafaring individuals approaching what we can only assume as Randland. This group of people uses channelers for battle and seems to have no qualms about using indiscriminate violence to get their way. That's it. That was all 8 episodes of Season 1 of The Wheel of Time. Knowing all of that, you should be caught up for Season 2, which premieres on September 1st on Prime Video. What was your favorite episode from Season 1? And what are you most looking forward to for Season 2? Let me know in the comments. As always, likes, shares, comments, subscriptions, they're all welcome and they're all very much appreciated. I also want to say thank you to my generous patrons and members. Having you back me up is incredibly motivating. And if you want to join this esteemed group of individuals, you can do so on my Patreon or by becoming a member on my YouTube. That's it for me today. Bye! Perrin and Egwene encounter a